Well, this is Guns, Knives, Watches, and welcome to the new channel. I just want to kind of recover something that I've talked about quite a bit and something that I use quite a bit just in my daily life. Because when we're cooking or doing something, we have to basically try and find a way to do a one-pot dish. Now, it doesn't matter whether we're cooking in our kitchen or we're cooking out on a campfire. It's the easiest way for us. Of course, these are Dutch ovens in front of you in two very different styles. And I'm just going to go over the uses of them, some ideas on how to use them, this, that, or the other. Let's go through the one that we're going to use in our kitchen first. Because this is a La Coquette from Staub, which basically a coquette is French for Dutch oven. Now, it's enamel coated. It has a flat bottom on it that is also enamel coated. Why is that important? Well, if you have a glass top stove, you can actually cook with this cast iron pot, and both of these are cast iron, on top of your stove without worrying about cracking your surface so much. Of course, if you drop it on it, you're going to crack it. But just the enameled cast iron, will not scratch your glass up, unless you do something very excessive. But it's great for a lot of different things. Now, I got these. In fact, all of our Staub came from Sierra Trading Post. I give out those coupons all the time. Of course, I've changed all my email addresses and everything. Gotten rid of a bunch of old flack when I created the new channel, so I didn't get any this last weekend. But you can pick these up for around $100. Of course, you can find them in other places for much, much more. And of course, Sierra Trading Post only gets them in kind of randomly. But they're really good. The coatings on them, work. They're black on the inside, same as just any other cast iron. But they really do work. Now, this oval size is about a 4 3/4 quart. The oval size, of course, is great for doing chickens, small chickens. You can do rabbit in this, squirrel, whatever you want to cook. Or you can do just your normal roast and whatever else you like that. The round is also great. It's just the oval tends to cook meat that's still on the bone quite a bit better. But this video really isn't about this Staub, so let's kind of move it to the side. While I'm moving this around, of course, Mrs. Guns, Knives, and Watches will do all of her browning in that. Of course, we got a fly. She'll do all her browning in that Staub on top of the stove, and then put her meat and everything in it. She'll brown onions in it, and then put it in the oven, and then bake it the rest of the way. So that way, she's not messing up multiple pots, and you keep all that ooey gooey goodness in it. Of course, this is a Lodge. It has a 12 on the side. This is actually a 6-quart round Lodge cast iron set, where the Staub was made in France. This one's made in China. Lodge used to be made in the United States. I'm aware of that. But anymore, all the Lodge that you buy is actually made in China, and they ship it here. This is not a light package. It comes in at about 19 pounds. It's not something you throw in a backpack, but it is something that we cook on in the fire ring that's out in my backyard, or we take out car camping and that type of stuff. And we have limbs fall out of trees all the time, so we'll have a brush fire or something. We don't use charcoal with these. We just basically will cut up wood, burn it, something that's fallen out of a tree, a deadfall, and we got to get rid of it somehow. So we'll go and cook a meal out there. Or my daughter basically had a Girl Scout troop come over, and we cooked out and did some work out there. But as I said, this is the 6-quart, 12-inch Boy Scout from Lodge. And there's a few different characteristics between it. Of course, it's not enamel coated, so you have to kind of keep the outside coated in an oil. Any oil that is solid at room temperature or fat that's solid at room temperature tends to work. Anything like that's liquid at room temperature tends to go rancid rather quickly. But the fire ring around the outside, or this ring around the outside, is for keeping coals on top of your Dutch oven when you're cooking, because ovens tend to want it. You want something to bake, you want to heat it from all around it. So you put your coals on top of it. I couldn't tell you the ratio. You're going to have to kind of work on that yourself. There are some guidelines on the internet, but what I found when cooking in a campfire, I just know how much volume to put there as to how much liquid or how much food is in here. You know, it's just something you're going to burn some stuff. You know, you'll over check it at the beginning. You'll burn a few things, but you kind of get the hang of it. Besides the ring on the top of the lid, this one of course also has legs on the bottom, especially just for cooking on coals. Now, a lot of people are going to tell you to use, you know, charcoal, but charcoal really is not a very environmentally friendly way of doing it. As I said, we just use deadfall material. A couple accessories that are really good for it. A pot lifter. I never thought I would ever say that, because I thought I was a manly man and I would just grab it with a pair of leather gloves. But this gives Mrs. Guns, Knives, and Watches, everyone, the ability just to hook it in there, pick up the lid, and be able to easily control the lid. And it's just a handy thing to have. And they're relatively inexpensive, and you'll buy one. As long as you don't lose it, you'll never, you know, it's good. You're good. Another nice little thing to have, and I never thought I'd ever say this either, is a lid stand, sorry. Now, you can use a lid stand the traditional way, just by setting the lid on it and keeping it out of the dirt. Of course, you could improvise something with rocks or something else. In our yard, back where we have our fire ring, you know, there's grass and stuff, so we tend to use this. But here's the main reason for having the lid stand. The main reason for the lid stand is actually for cooking. Because now, what I have is, I have an improvised skillet out of my lid. The charcoal's under there, preheated. I can cook on that. It's concave enough to work. You can cook quite a few things here. One thing that I would recommend, and this is just, your mileage may vary. What I tend to do is I'll take a light sandpaper, nothing coarser than 220 grit, and I will actually go and lightly sand the surface of, I know this is all pre-seasoned, but I will lightly sand the surface of the inside. And what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to knock down hot spots, or high spots. The high spots are going to be a problem. Why? Because when you're using your utensils on it, they're what's going to hang. No, none of these are perfect. All of them have some minor imperfections. If you go through and you find a perfect one, good for you. I just use some light sandpaper and do a sanding, knock down the high spots, and that saves me about a year of using this thing, having to break it in, and just the nuisance of it. Then after I do that, I will re-season it. Now, you can look on the web about various and sundry ways of re-seasoning things. As I said, use an oil that is going to be solid at room temperature. And also, don't let the oil puddle, because if you're re-seasoning this and anywhere there's a puddle of oil, it's not going to season there. I wish that it would, but it just won't. So I do that when I first get them. I know they're supposedly pre-seasoned 50 times, but I found that taking off those high spots makes enough of a difference to me that it's worth going through the process of just lightly sanding the inside, lightly sanding the inside of the top, and then re-seasoning it myself. And re-seasoning is going to take you a few hours. Just plan on 3 hours, because you're going to have to heat it up. You're going to heat it up for a certain amount of time, then you're going to have to let it naturally cool in that oven. Don't take it out. Don't this, that, or the other. Just let everything kind of cool down. But anyway, that's Guns, Knives, and Watches. And our favorite way of cooking. We do this all different kinds of times of the year. Of course, fall, winter, and spring are our favorites. Sitting around a campfire. Another thing this is always good for is in case of emergency preparedness. Of course, we have our fire ring. In case our electricity goes out, we have an alternate way of cooking food. And we're not, going back to putting meat on a stick or, just throwing meat in a coals. And we can actually cook meals that we're used to on a daily basis because our power goes out here quite often. I live at the end of a line, and it's just the way life is. So this can not only fit into your daily activities or your yearly activities, but it can also fit into your emergency disaster preparedness plan as an alternate way of cooking. Now, as I said, they're 19 pounds just with the lid and the Dutch oven, which is not light, but it allows you to have food that is as good a quality as you would cook in your standard oven, or maybe even better depending on your skill level. And you're not just out roughing it. You can get your kids involved. You can get everybody involved. And for about $50 to $75, it's a really good price for something that brings the family together and also fits into your emergency preparedness plan. And that is really the direction that this new channel is going to go, because I'm trying to bring you cost-effective ways, and I'm trying to use my company, my resources, and the things that are around me, and also just my experiences to bring you some options that are the most cost-effective that you can use on a daily basis, or at least on a seasonal basis, and then also fit into your emergency preparedness plan. If it just fits into your emergency preparedness plan, then I would honestly sit there and tell you, in an emergency, you're not going to use it, you're not going to have the skill level, and it's going to raise the stress level. And when you're in that situation, the stress is already high. Use something, know how it works, this, that, or the other, so that you don't raise your stress level even higher. Because the key to survival is a mental thing, and anything you can do to regulate your mental state and bring something that is as warming as a good hot meal into your life is something that's worth all the money in the world. This is Guns, Knives, and Watches, and have a good one.